Please be aware that this episode contains strong references to suicide and abusive behaviour in relationships. If this isn't for you, please skip this episode and tune in for the next one in 2 weeks' time. With that said, thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello, little eggies, and welcome back to a new episode of the Quantum Egg Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the national TV sensation Married at First Sight, otherwise known as...
Oh, yes.
Hi,
As
Rob.
our very talented...
The accent lost so badly at the end, so
I think anyone who can do any accent impresses me.
That's true.
Because I can't do any accent whatsoever.
You can do posh.
It's not an accent, though, is it?
No.
I would argue while we're watching MAFS, you can affect it quite well. If you're copying another one of the contestants.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're mimicking like one of the people on it and not doing your own voice, it does come across quite well.
It's when I think about it.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Like,
You just have to imagine yourself in the shoes of Mel.
Oh, that
So
was
what-
horrible.
Yeah, that was really bad. That wasn't my best one.
Wasn't my best.
but yes, we are talking about Married at First Sight today and reality TV as a whole.
Yeah,
Yes.
reality TV.
And hosting us today, for a change, is going to be Bosif.
Yes.
The Bosifator.
The Bosatron.
Bosatron.
Optimus Prime. Oh, that doesn't work.
Because you wrote the script
Yeah.
for today.
I did, because I introduced Married at First Sight to the team.
You did.
And I brought the bar down slowly in
you
our
did.
house towards
We
reality
became
TV.
so less cultured and insightful
Yeah.
as soon as that came into our lives. And do you know what? Thank you.
Yeah. And that's the thing, we wanted to talk about it because it's all we've been watching for the past 3 weeks. And there's not a lot of
It's
reality.
not all we've been watching.
Okay, well, we've been watching other very high bar things.
It's the
but-
thing we've been most invested in.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel.
Yeah.
And
I
I
was
just-
like
yeah.
actively anxious when I couldn't watch more. I was like, I need to know what's happening with Timothy and Lucinda immediately.
Exactly, and I think it's a really special thing when reality TV has that effect on you. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to
definitely.
dive into it and just think about why that is.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to like open up the discussion just with like different reality TV shows that you've enjoyed throughout the years.
Does X Factor count?
Oh yeah,
100%.
Okay, because
absolutely.
that was like mine and my family's thing growing up. We watched it every year without fail. We all got so invested. And like, I don't know, I think to me at the time it didn't feel like reality TV because it was a singing competition, but it was so much more than that. It got messy. Like, there was drama always, you
Yeah.
know? Even between the judges, there was drama.
Those were the best episodes.
Yeah.
Because we also watched X Factor every year. And the episodes where the judges were at each other's throats, like,
So good.
Yeah.
they were the best episodes.
Oh, what was the one where Gary Barlow said to him, I can't remember her name, but he was like, I don't know what's worse, that comment you just made or your fag-ash breath.
Yeah.
And it was so... And it was
Yeah.
like live on TV and they couldn't edit it out and it was just the best thing ever.
Also, that clip of Sharon and Louis like stumbling through the X
dying.
Factor corridors,
Yeah.
dying of laughter, gets me every time.
It was
It's
really
so
funny.
It's because Sharon walks into a door
Yeah,
as
she,
well.
she probably like smacks her head on it as well. Yeah, that was reality TV, I guess, but that was my experience and yours. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, the other thing is that, because British reality TV is a different breed.
yeah.
And I think we all in this room used to watch the fat shows.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
shows about fat people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where you'd get some horrible little man going into someone's home and just fat phobiaing.
Yeah.
Fat phobiaing.
Fat
That's such a
phobiing
good
the house
verb.
down.
I have really vivid memories of being like 9, going downstairs in the morning and just watching back-to-back Gok Wan, like body shaming and feeling up women. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
My mum loved those.
I thought it was amazing, but it like solidified. I remember there was one where he got all of these women to line up Like, he got like 100 women in a room and he got them to walk up to a pedestal, felt them up and gave them like apple, pear, pencil, and then like moved them on. And I was like, this is gonna stay with me. It's a moment of trauma.
It was so bad. Like, how did we allow that to happen as a society?
Oh, but I think that's also something interesting about reality TV, and we've touched on with just those 3 examples.
Yeah.
It's like, they can be the most frivolous thing in the world. I'm thinking Bake Off.
Oh, yeah.
You know, really, really warm and like
non-problematic.
harmless to, you know, X Factor, which is kind of middling. It's a middling
Quite
show.
dodgy sometimes.
Very dodgy sometimes, but there's still some wholesome moments.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And then you just get the straight up, really tragic, shamey sort of shows.
10 Years Younger was always a big one. I remember I was telling you about it not long ago, and they used to do just full-on body transformations, facelifts, you know, surgeries, everything on like women who had just aged quite naturally. And it's one thing to give someone a makeover, it's another thing to completely change their appearance and be like, wow, don't you look so much better now? And I remember that instilled in me at an early age. Oh, I'm going to need plastic surgery to look the way I want to look.
Yeah.
And lo and behold,
Here we are.
here we are.
Yeah.
You know?
I think, like, while I was doing my research for this episode, I was really struck by, like, I was thinking through all of the different stages and also how, the ways that people who've written these books categorize, like, the different stages of reality TV and, like, the different types of reality TV. And it's definitely, like, towards the late noughties, early 2010s when there was that massive boom of, like, really just punching down reality TV.
Yeah.
Where there was a lot of kind of shaming people for the way that they dress. Remember Pod?
Oh, yeah, the pod.
No, I don't know Pod.
Yeah, what
Snog,
was
Marry,
it?
Avoid.
Yeah, the Snog, Marry, Avoid thing.
loved
And
that one.
they'd I loved it as well. And they'd go up to strangers in the street, show people pictures of alternative people who were in this pod. And they'd be like, what do you think of them? And they'd be like, oh, they look horrible. They look really scary. And then they'd go in this pod and they'd transform them to look normal. And then they'd be like, showing pictures of them as normal and being like, oh, doesn't she look lovely? Isn't she pretty? And like completely like get rid of their authentic identity, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so there's almost like a weird undercurrent of conformity
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
in reality TV.
It's teaching you what's acceptable as a woman. Like,
Yeah.
it was very much
Particularly,
like, it's
yeah.
particularly for women. Like, you should be understated, you should wear knee-length skirts.
Classy.
And have, classy is the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, if you don't look this way, we are going to get members of the public to shame you until you...
Classy, thin, mysterious, but pretty and approachable.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. It makes no
Yeah.
sense.
But the funny thing is that, like, they do the interviews afterwards with them, like, a little bit down the line, and every single time they will have gone back to the way that they were dressing before. And it's like, literally, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of this show? Like, it doesn't do anything.
Do you know what is my ultimate reality TV show? Come Dine With Me.
Oh, come dine with me.
I love Come Dine With Me.
And I think that's it treads that wonderful line of nobody's really out for blood in those shows.
Well.
Except when they are.
So when they are.
I think that's a really good precursor to Bake Off, don't you? As, like, something that, like, it's a little bit competitive, but mostly it's about ordinary people just kind of having a good time.
Yeah.
It's not too serious.
Do you know what I think it also brings up is the role of alcohol in reality TV shows.
Oh, true.
Because it was always the ones where they've had one too many glasses of wine at the dinner parties where they'd start kicking off.
Yes.
You know, and they were everyone's favourite episodes.
Of course they were.
Yeah, of course.
Which I guess brings us on to why.
Yeah, section
Yeah.
one. So, the discussions that we've been having, I think, take us very neatly into the next section. We've talked about it a little bit. I noticed as I was reading around that there's a big representation of reality TV as trash TV, and it was very much viewed with a lot of ire and a lot of scorn.
I think it still is.
Yeah, very much so. Especially, in academic circles, it's nearly impossible to even find any sources on it. So I wanted to kind of dig into why that is and whether that's deserved.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk a little bit briefly about Love Island. You've seen it, I
I've
haven't. Really.
I've seen it.
You've seen
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Seb has seen it because we've both been made to watch it by the same person.
Yes.
Hannah Wrigg.
My sister.
Yeah. Shout out, Hannah.
Seb, would you like to read this handy quote I have here?
Yeah, sure. So Serena Smith said for The Guardian in 2023, quote, "After former contestants Sophie Graydon and Mike Thalasitis killed themselves, the reality show has made particular efforts to protect the well-being of its cast. But this kinder approach may be proving a turn-off for viewers, despite audiences claiming to want more socially conscious shows. Love Island is arguably becoming less entertaining as it has become more ethical, with last season's launch show watched by 1.3 million viewers, 2 million down from the 3.3 million who tuned in back in 2019, end quote."
Lovely, thank you very much. I think we've all made jokes about how reality TV used to be a lot more interesting when there were no morals around.
Yeah.
I think back to early noughties Big Brother as an example where there were multiple people having breakdowns all the time. And while we know it's incredibly unethical, it is hard to tear your eyes away from it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it does, unfortunately, make for quite good viewing.
It's
but obviously
entertaining because we're detached from it as well.
Exactly.
It's called reality TV, but it's so outside of our own perceptions of what's normal and the socially acceptable way to behave that we don't see it as real. We don't relate in the same way. You might relate to characters and be like, oh my god, she's so me. Wow, so relatable icon. But a lot of the behaviour that's displayed is, what we'd class in everyday life as mentally unstable, you know?
Yeah, and I think in in all of these, just so you know, I'm making a point. In all of these shows, we're also encouraged to not see these people as people.
Yeah.
So thinking about Love Island, in between them just hanging about in the villa, they also have to do challenges, and a lot of these challenges are very dehumanizing.
Yeah.
They're designed to make either for them to be like sexy challenges, in which case like you're encouraged as a viewer to objectify the contestants, or they're there to humiliate.
Yes.
Usually it's both combined.
Yeah.
And I think there's an active effort for you as a viewer to go, oh, this is a person, but it's also a character.
Yeah.
You might as well be watching Mr. Blobby.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also reminds me of how so many writers have done dystopian versions of reality TV.
Yeah, like Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games.
Doctor
Doctor Who did an episode on it, which was a Big Brother spoof, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was Big Brother. What was it called?
Weakest Link.
Weakest Link.
Yes.
Yeah, like one of those makeover shows.
Yeah.
Do you know what the show was that always crossed the line for me and my family that we could never watch?
Go on.
I'm a Celebrity.
Same. I hated I'm a Celebrity.
The things that they made them do, it was just way too much for me, and people absolutely love it.
I will admit we liked I'm a Celebrity in our house.
Yeah. You were either an I'm a Celeb house or you weren't. Like,
Yeah. Funnily enough, I didn't like Big Brother.
I didn't like
For the
Big Brother
same
either.
reason.
Yeah.
Couldn't watch Big Brother. But yeah, I'm a Celebrity is definitely the worst offender of especially because the people who go in are sort of B-list celebrities.
Yeah.
So they sort of have that people feel about them anyway.
Yes. You don't really view them as everyday people at all.
And that film, that show definitely feels like we are just tuning in to watch them suffer.
Oh, it is,
Like,
100%.
yeah. And not only that, but I mean, just think about how recently, what was the name of that awful politician who went into it?
He broke COVID rules to feel up his now girlfriend, and then went on it to try and explain that it was, it's all about love, and trying to humanise himself in the public's eyes. And then all of the other contestants on the show went in on him, which was hilarious.
Nigel Farage was offered. I remember that.
I don't know if he went on.
He didn't
Matt
go on.
Hancock.
Matt Hancock, that's the guy.
Yeah.
But what was awful is that it sort of worked.
Did
Yeah.
it?
There was a percentage of the public who... It's not so much that they liked him, it's just by humiliating yourself like that, you sort of remove your teeth.
It's a little bit like it's like a public rotten cabbage throwing, isn't it?
It's very dangerous because it makes people think that you're like them, that you're down to get in the muck with them, and you can kind of laugh at them and be like, oh, what a silly person, instead of, wow, this person has done irreversible damage to the country, and
and is an active danger.
It's seeking that populist thing of like, I can have a beer with him.
Yeah, exactly. It's really strange, and that was the show that crossed the line for me.
Yeah. Speaking of Matt Hancock, small tangent. He also went on SAS Who Dares Wins.
What's that?
It's SAS. It's like Secret Service top level, like.
Oh yeah.
They kind of push people to become like the top level army people who go in and snipe people and all the rest. It's kind of like a the ultimate masculinity challenge. And I think I think he was trying to redeem himself in like I'm a man and I can do all these things and I'm tough and whatever. But then he got grilled by one of the people. They like basically psychologically torture them at one point, and she just like went in on him and was like, you're a terrible person, you've done this, you've done that. And it was incredibly pleasing to watch, I will say.
Well, I think there is something in... I think you're both right in that it is a sort of public cabbage throwing contest, but through doing that, it creates this illusion of that this person has paid for their crimes.
Yeah.
And he hasn't paid for anything.
He's been paid to do it.
Exactly.
He got paid a lot of money to be on that show.
It's like a double bluff.
Yeah, it is. It's very strange, and it's casting a big kind of curtain over everything and adding an air of theatricality.
And do you think, like, especially now, because I think there's such a crossover between influencers and reality TV contestants, that there's such a thing of, I'm thinking back to early Big Brother and whatnot. It was just like real, quote unquote, real people going in, and like they happen to become popular with people. Whereas now people go in knowing that they'll be made into a very particular kind of celebrity after they've been on one of these shows.
Yeah. Whereas before it was kind of like a free for all. I mean, like, was it Dermot O'Leary who then became like X Factor host?
Yes.
After he got famous on Big Brother.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he did. And then he did loads of things after that. And it was just very like, oh, now he's a kind of TV personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas now it's very much more internet orientated.
It is like a way to kind of introduce yourself to the public and then be like, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, which
very much so.
Didn't used to be the case at all.
Exactly.
So it's interesting to see how it's changed.
Yeah. So moving on to MAFS in this instance. So from that same article, they said, quote, arguably cruelty remains deeply baked into the format of reality TV. Audiences don't watch shows such as Married at First Sight or Selling Sunset to see blissed out people behaving rationally, end quote. And I just wanted to discuss how true that is and how far we've come from the early 2010s.
Oh, yeah. No, I would definitely agree with this. In terms of, I think people are there for the drama. What I do think has happened in response to people wanting the drama, but obviously shows being concerned about people's well-being, is that I do think a lot more reality TV shows are scripted now.
Oh, yes, 100%. Like, you can definitely tell in some instances, and then there was a big thing about something being leaked off the MAFS schedule recently, which basically showed that a massive plot point of the latest season was scripted. Don't know how true it is because I've not seen like any real sources. Like, I've seen articles about it, but I've not seen the actual schedule that was leaked. But it would answer a lot of kind of holes in what had happened. Like, how did Eden find out about... It was about someone cheating with their ex. And it's like, how did Eden find out?
Yeah,
What
she just sort of received this message from God.
Yeah, it was like divine.
I've heard some information.
Yeah.
It was very suspicious, wasn't it?
It was very suspicious.
Yeah.
It's like, from who, when, where, why? And there was kind of a thing of, oh, she asked to borrow a top because she said she's meeting her. But it was very well timed. And I don't know, it did seem very dramatic.
Yeah. And did the fact that might not be real kind of take away from the enjoyment?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a big scandal. It was kind of... It caused a lot of drama.
I would argue if someone is writing it well enough and there's no leaks, because that's the thing, reality TV, there's no way of knowing what's real and what's not, because some of it is real. Because you're just filming people 24/7.
Yeah.
And when you're filming people 24/7, they're going to have meltdowns, particularly when you put them in spaces. So on MAFS, for example, they get put in this hotel where they have to live with their partner who they've known for a week up until that point. They've been on holiday together, and in the holiday stage it's still fun, isn't it?
Yeah, or it goes horribly wrong and they have big arguments.
Yes.
But it's still that kind of, even if you're not having a good time, it's still, what do I say, it's
like a novelty.
It's a novelty, but then they do this for 3 months. So imagine you've been put with a stranger who you have to live with in a tiny hotel room for 3 months. They are creating an environment where undoubtedly meltdowns and arguments are going to happen.
So would you agree that cruelty is baked into the format of MAFS then?
Yeah,
Yes.
100%. I think they orchestrate situations in which things will go wrong. I mean, we know this from the sort of challenges that they set as well.
The photo rating task.
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh, and they deliberately put people together who they know are gonna clash. Like, I always think about Innes and Bronson from season 8?
Yeah, I think so.
9?
I think it was 8.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was, oh my god, the way those two were with each other. I mean, Bronson was like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Innes was very obviously unhinged. Like, I don't think that's a stretch.
Yeah.
The stuff that she did and said, it was like, wow. And it's the same with this season. Like, you think about, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack was...
He should not have been allowed on the show.
Although I'd argue he was well matched with Tori.
I mean,
In the end,
it did turn out that way.
Yeah, they were both unhinged.
Yeah, they were. But I think she might have flown under the radar a bit as being that unhinged. I think everyone was kind of surprised at how like willing she was to overlook the things that he did.
I think the most egregious example was that couple who was only on for 2 weeks.
Oh, what, Ash and Melanie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Melanie very clearly had issues, and we'll never know how much of that was for the camera and how much wasn't. But pairing someone who clearly has mental health issues with someone else on a reality TV show, that clearly shows that they're not too concerned about their contestants' well-being.
No, not at all.
Like, apparently she was getting on tables and like just completely being so disruptive that they couldn't have her back. I just felt so sorry for that poor woman because she obviously needed help, and that format, that environment was obviously just not going to vibe with her.
No, and to get on the show, she would have had to go through several layers of like talking to people.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Psychological, evaluation.
Yeah.
To get on the show, and lots of people greenlit her. And again, like I said, we'll never know how much she was put on for the camera, if any of it was. And we don't know what she said to these experts, quote unquote experts.
Experts in golfing.
Well, that's it.
Cricket,
sorry.
And I don't think you can hide something like that well. Do you know what? On that subject, I auditioned for The Traitors.
Yeah.
Like a year ago. Was it a year ago? Something like that.
Yeah.
And I got to like one of the final rounds of interviews, and when I tell you that they ask you everything they could possibly ask, like that interview went on for hours because it was literally just, tell me about this aspect of your life, what's your mental health like, blah, 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 blah. How do you think you'd cope if this happened? It was very, very in depth, and they wanted to know everything about you. And it's like, after that interview, she was like, if you get further with this, we will ask you more.
Yeah.
It'll go deeper. And I was like, how much deeper can it possibly go?
I know,
but they
exactly.
do. So it's not as if it's not happening before they get on the show.
It's more like they actually choose the people who will be badly affected and put them on.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk about representation and how that's used on reality.
Yes,
Getting into
please.
Ella.
Before we do, can I just go back? Because you were talking about cruelty.
Yes.
Sorry, because I want to bring this up again. I want to bring up alcohol.
Okay.
Because I genuinely think, depending on how much a show cares about its contestants, the less alcohol they're allowed to drink on set. Because Love Island, at first, every other scene was them drinking smoking fags. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and they were actively encouraged to drink.
Yeah.
I don't want to say they were forced because we don't know that, but they were definitely encouraged. And obviously, the drunker people get, the worse decisions they make, the louder they become, the more fights kick off.
Yeah.
Love Island now, they're allowed 1 drink a day in the
Wow.
evening. And sometimes they will literally pull together so that one person can have all of the drinks and get drunk.
It's so silly, isn't it?
It
It's
is,
so
but you can
silly.
also see why so much more entertaining stuff happened in the early
It is,
Yeah.
but thinking about MAFS, the majority of the drama happens in what's called the dinner parties, capital D. And what is free-flowing at the dinner parties?
Drinks.
Yeah. So
Wine.
I genuinely think it's almost a bit insidious, but I think the consumption of alcohol is linked to how cruel the show is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the biggest arguments we saw were when, like, I mean, one of my favourite examples is Timothy just having a drink and then kind of looking around like, who am I going to kick off at? And it was so funny, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, they set this up so much, you know? They really, really do.
And if you want to talk about anyone being, you know, not in the headspace for the show, probably Timothy. Obviously, he came out of it very well in the end, but
Yeah.
it must have been hard for him.
Yeah, it must have been. But no, you're totally right. And one of the most bizarre examples I've seen of this was from a Russian reality TV show, which Anna was watching. And in the very first episode, they have like a big night and they come on and they just drink as much as they possibly can. And they want them to fight. People ended up hospitalised. Like people end up smashing their head in, like broken legs.
Oh
Some
my
people
God.
can't return to the show because they get so... And the premise is that it's a bunch of women who have lived incredibly rough lives and they're all like addicted to drugs or alcohol or substance abuse, and they all are like, or homeless or something, and they basically go through like a finishing school to turn into like functional girls in society. And in that first episode they all arrive like bullheaded, ready to kind of alpha each other, and massive fights happen, and they just go behind the bar doing shots, and it's unlimited alcohol, and you know, people get so seriously injured that they can't return,
That's insane.
and it's absolutely bonkers.
Well, there you go. My thesis is proved correct.
It is. It was the first thing that come to mind when you said that. You should
Yeah.
watch it. It's absolutely bonkers. Like, it's
Theatre of
unreal.
cruelty.
That is
Yeah.
like no, but that is that not just a modern day Colosseum?
Of course
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Of course
It
it
is.
is. Yeah.
It's getting the dogs out and making them fight.
Oh, people just don't change.
No,
we
no.
still want to like be sat up in the Colosseum eating grapes.
Yeah.
While some poor sod's getting his leg chewed off
By a lion.
People would eat that up.
Yeah.
They'd eat that up today. Because,
Yeah.
But sorry, back
To representation. So
Anyway.
yeah, I wanted to talk about Ella because she had a quite interesting arc. I will say she's a very
Or should we introduce Ella first
Yes,
for the
of
people who
course.
don't know?
Ella is a trans woman. She came on the show with a man called what was his name?
I can't remember, but it was this was the UK version
Yeah, so it
of the
wasn't,
Traitors. We've been talking
Traitors.
majoritively about the Australian version.
It was Married at First Sight.
Did I say the Traitors?
You did.
I do apologise. No, so this was the UK version of Married at First Sight. As opposed to we've been talking about the Australian Married at First Sight.
Yeah.
Ella was the first trans person on, I think, on all of Married at First Sight, but it was the UK one.
Yeah.
I will say she's very feminine. She's very appealing as someone who is like, I
She's
think,
straight passing.
yes, straight
Yeah.
passing, someone that people will accept.
Thin, blonde,
Yeah.
quite pretty.
Yeah.
But it was really sweet watching how much it obviously meant to her, and she got to have a few moments where she talked about, you know, trans rights. She wore a trans coloured dress at one
And the
point.
hairpin as well. That
And
she
the
had a
hairpin.
hairpin that said trans rights are human rights or something like that, or just like trans rights.
Yeah, which I think we can all agree, despite what we think about reality TV and the morality of whether she should have been on or not for various reasons, because of the way UK politics is at the moment in regards to trans people, seeing her on a reality TV show was just like a whoa moment for me.
It was so different.
Because the UK is just so unaccepting of like trans individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately we just had I don't know if it's a law yet, but it's been passed that puberty blockers won't be used for children anymore.
Trans teenagers.
It's a recommendation, basically.
Is it a recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like very heavy, isn't it? It gives a lot of people an excuse to behave in certain ways, which
exactly
we'd class as discrimination, but they might not.
Yeah. And I also think you've got to think about the far-reaching like possibility of reality TV as well, because it's not something where, you know, kids don't have to get a movie ticket to some avant-garde film that's only showing in the everyman.
Yeah.
You know, because like that's the majority of where we see our representation.
Yeah, it's in quite niche things that the wider public don't have access to, or won't bother watching because it's not to their tastes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes it extremely important, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's I wanted to talk about her story a bit because her partner revealed afterwards he's pansexual. Well, that's how he identifies. And he said that he actually didn't want to be matched with Ella when he found out, when they asked him, well, he didn't say Ella specifically.
I remember what he said.
Yeah.
Do you want me to say?
Yes, please.
So he said that he would prefer to be matched with a man or a very masculine woman. Is specifically what he said. And he got matched with Ella, who was a very femme trans woman.
Yeah. They know who they're matching people up with. They know when they're doing it to kind of stir drama or not give people what they want. And
they're not protecting either of them. And in Ella's case particularly, you know, we all know as trans people that getting rejected because of the way that you are is a very traumatic thing.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So, you know, having that play out on national TV...
I mean, that goes deeper than just, oh no, he doesn't want me for my looks or because I'm from the Gold Coast, you know. You know, it's tied in directly with identity and literally something intrinsic about yourself that you cannot change and don't want to change.
No, and she would have been told that this person she was being matched with would have been accepting.
Yeah.
You know, or would have been into femme people.
Yeah.
And then they're both just put in this situation where they have to deal with it.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that led to the whole drama of her getting together with someone else, which was very, you know, entertaining to watch. But obviously that hurt someone else in the process, didn't it? So there's that. So we're going to move on to section 2 now, where I want to talk about how real reality TV actually is. Well, we have talked a little bit about it already. So I wanted to introduce my argument. And I wanted to argue that reality could count as anthropology, and that it is that is actually what makes it a massive draw for people to watch.
So this is from an article called Why Reality TV Doesn't Suck and May Even Make Us Smarter by Sonal Chokshi in 2012. So, quote, a key feature of anthropology is the long observational ethnographic interview. Anthropologists believe one of the advantages of this method is that no one can manage appearances, let alone lie successfully for a long period of time. End quote.
So yeah, the argument being made here is that with something like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, for instance, they are making it with a very specific image that they want to portray. But if you film someone for long enough, they can't lie forever. Especially if they're in their own home, you know, things about the way they live that they might not intend to come across end up coming out, which I think is very true of MAFS. I don't know if you agree.
I would say yes and no, just because they don't film them like constantly for MAFS. You know, they have to be mic'd up, they have to be wired. That's not 24/7.
No.
In this case, otherwise we'd see them, you know, sitting down eating breakfast, not talking, and all that boring stuff like Big Brother used to do. Whereas with MAFS, you know, you kind of see snippets and usually the most dramatic bits of their days. And whether that's staged or not staged, I think it's a mix. I think it really, really is, because they have to prepare these people. You know, when you see the shots of the cameramen running down the corridor to catch an argument, but you can already hear the voices, that's because they're wearing a mic. And someone in the sound crew has had to change a battery, be like, right, this is going to last for 2 hours, you know, hit record, go, have your argument.
Yeah.
That's not authentic. It's not how do I put this, a real, look into what their argument might actually look like.
Yeah, I really agree. And with MAFS in particular, I think they've done something so interesting recently, which they've sort of made a spectacle of how fake it is.
Yeah.
They have,
I think. Because so much more than previous seasons and other shows that I think about, they have producers asking them questions, prompting things.
Yeah.
And also low-key laughing at them and laughing with them as well. And then there's so many incidences where a contestant will, quote, run off, do you know what I mean? And be like, I'm done, this is it. I'm the end. And they sort of run off and you realise that the dining place that they've been in is a set.
Yeah.
And that there's microphones everywhere.
Lights.
And lights. And there's crew running about being like, can I get you a hot chocolate?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
would you, playing devil's advocate, would you argue that all of that stuff acts as a foil to the moment when they run out and they aren't controlling their emotions?
But I think they are. This is what I'm saying.
Right,
I think it's so dramatized, you know, and it's almost formulaic the way that the arguments take place, in that something will happen, you know, they'll talk about it and they'll keep talking about it until they get to like a big showpiece. So it'll be a dinner party, or it'll be a date, or it'll be something.
Yeah.
And then they'll have the argument, it'll go off, and then someone's, I need to leave. I'm taking off, unmic me, I need to go.
Yeah, you see them like dramatically pull the wire out
It's
and
such
be like,
a,
I can't do this anymore. Oh, you know, and do the big kind of, I'm breaking the fourth wall almost.
Well, it's weird to think about it as like a game, because they do gamify it, don't they? It's like
yeah.
all about winning the game of MAFS. All the contestants
Who's the best
talk
couple?
about.
Yeah.
It's weird. The contestants all seem so caught up in this, especially people like Jack and Tori. I saw Richard say something similar in an interview.
Yeah.
We talked about the kind of who won MAFS, and that's not something I think that we would think about.
I
watching
would.
it. Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't have unless that had come up.
So I actually had a discussion about this specific thing with our dear friend Adelaide, who won't be listening.
He's too good for this kind
Shade.
of... Yeah.
But he was talking about how he hates gamified reality TV shows for this reason, and that's why he doesn't like watching MAFS. And I said that's what intrigues me about it, because it becomes less than about me watching someone have authentic experiences on TV and more about watching how people think they're going to win the game.
How they're going to come across well, and then how their face drops when they realise the edit they've been given.
Exactly. And I think that's what's interesting, is like which people were like made to root for. You know, which people get the blessing of the producers and which get the red card.
With that in mind, there's a quote actually I'm going to ask you to read now, because I think it's really relevant to what you've said. It's this one here.
Okay. So this is by June Deary, who wrote it in 2015 from Reality TV.
Yeah, it's a book called Reality TV.
It's a book called Reality TV. Quote, "There is a coyness about reality TV's faux authenticity that encourages people to think about how content is made and for what purpose." End quote.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about kind of seeing through the cracks, basically. I think part of the appeal, especially for us watching, is trying to work out who the person is underneath the performance.
It's the game within the game. That's what because I can't help but thinking to myself, what would I do to like come across well on these like programs? Because you do want to be bolshy, because like people like a big personality, otherwise you get like relegated, that's the word, to the sidelines, and you don't get any airtime. But you don't want to be too bolshy, or bolshy in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I wonder what Ursula Le Guin would say. Sorry, I just realised we didn't have a quote for the first time from Ursula Le Guin.
I actually couldn't find anything relevant.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well, you didn't look hard enough.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Failed Ursula.
Well, I think she'd agree with all of what we're saying.
She was an anthropologist.
Exactly, she was an anthropologist.
She was an anthropologist.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's looking in and seeing those layers of games, and that's what really struck me about it, and that's kind of what hooked me, I think.
Oh yeah, I think that is truly how it is, like anthropology. Is it's not so much the idea of, oh, we're watching someone unobserved. It's the idea of we're watching people observed.
Knowing that they're being observed,
Yes.
and watching them try to play the game.
Yeah, because like Seb said, this is a bit different to like Big Brother, where they're constantly observed. So like in that case, you do lower your guard.
Yeah, and you're just like, do you know what? I'm going to be messy.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, this is, I can't keep this up 24/7, but with something like MAFS, where you are very set, like, recording times and pieces,
Yeah.
that then is what's interesting to me, and also why I think certain characters appeal to us more than others. Because I do think some contestants have a more real experience than others, thinking of Timothy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his was almost too real. It made me cry
Yeah.
multiple times. And, you know, it's funny because he has a TikTok account now. And the way he speaks on that is exactly the way he spoke on the show. Yeah, I don't think that guy could have lied if he wanted to.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's so funny because, and this isn't making judgment on anyone's appearances in the show, but the majority of the cast is what you'd expect of TV contestants now, in that they all look like influencers. You know, they're very readily made up, thin,
Yes.
athletic, pretty, most of having some sort of facial surgery.
Yeah.
Whereas Timothy and Lucinda, who were undoubtedly the favourites
Yeah.
on the show, were just regular people.
I find it
Yeah.
fascinating how much of a clear divide there is between the ones the producers have said, these are the influencers and these are the real people.
Yeah.
And like how we tend to gravitate towards the real people as our favourite in a way.
But that's the appeal of reality TV.
Yeah, because it's almost saying, look how self-aware we are. We know what we're doing. We know who the shallow ones are, and we know who the real ones are.
And we can point and laugh at the shallow
Well,
ones.
yeah, and it's
With
like,
too much makeup on, just like in the early 2010s.
but is the existence of this show not shallow in itself? You know, and that's the strange question. It's really, really bizarre. It's almost paradoxical.
Yeah.
Love it.
Lovely. Well, I think I'm going to move us into section 3, which is reality TV and gossip. So, I was thinking about why we enjoy MAFS so much, and I thought I could relate a bit of it back to gossip, basically, and the role that gossip plays in people's social circles. So, something that I find very healing about watching MAFS is that I think it's a study into toxic behaviour dynamics, especially in straight relationships, because that's what we see most of the time, but also in general. And I think there are just so many instances on MAFS of like people getting into these relationships that are so obviously toxic, and I don't know if you agree. It's sometimes healing to be able to look at that portrayed on TV and talk about it with your friends and dissect it and be like, kind of point the finger at that behaviour.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, before we like dig into that,
Yeah.
I think you've touched on something that I truly believe about reality TV, is that it's a communal experience.
Yes.
Like, I know some people watch reality TV by themselves, but I think peak reality TV is when there's a bunch of you
Yes.
gossiping, making judgments, you know, making jokes about what's going on.
I get bored if I watch it on my own.
Yeah.
I can't pay attention. I get really bored.
So, and I think, like, because you're saying it's, like, built on a foundation of gossip, and obviously gossip is a communal thing. So that's why I think it works so best when you're watching it with other people.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, it's interesting as well that you say, you know, you view these people who are in these toxic relationships, but there's also room to them be like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for this person who got paired with this person. Because a lot of the time it's not their choice, it's how they deal with that other person's behaviour that really makes or breaks whether you like them or not. Like, I think of Lauren in the latest season and how she wouldn't put up with a lot of stuff that was said by, you know, men. Even the person that she was with, you know, if he did something or if he didn't stand up for her when she was targeted by someone else, she'd call that out. She was always willing to call it out. Whereas someone like Tori, who was often criticised for letting her partner, you know, get away with certain comments, she became, you know, quite scrutinised. And
A villainess.
A villainess, yeah, very much so. And it's interesting to look at that behaviour and see how we condemn it ourselves as well. But is the show also leading us to do that?
Maybe. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is something to be said for the fact that Jack and Tori are still together.
Well,
Like, Let's not be too hasty.
Yeah.
I think it is interesting though, because it's like,
No, I think I have a hard, fast rule about couples from these shows. They have to be together for a whole year post like it being released and post like the hype dying down in order for me to believe they had any feelings for each other whatsoever. They have to make it past a year, like not like, oh, it's been a year and we've broken up, because that is very suspicious to me. But they have to get towards the 2-year mark, and then I'm willing to admit they had feelings for each other.
Okay, wow.
once people have stopped talking about them and writing articles about them.
All I'm saying is, if I went on one of these shows and I didn't like the person I was with, I'd be like, hey, I don't like you. However, we can both get rich off this. So let's pretend.
Well, that's it. And there was a lot of speculation even in the show about Jack and Tori, whether their relationship was real or whether they'd faked it, and there still is. And, you know, I agree with that. I'd be very interested to see if they were still together, you know, a year on post.
In 2 years. In 2 years' time, we will come back on this podcast and we will discuss it. We will see.
That's a threat, not a promise.
Sorry, I feel quite passionate about this.
I've noticed.
I'm going to be knocking on Tori and Jack's door.
We all feel very passionate about Tori and Jack and Jono and Ellie.
Yeah.
Biggest snake of the season, Jono.
Can we talk about why that is? And I think it leads on to what you kind of talk about next, which is the treatment of women as well.
Yeah.
Particularly, and how maybe our tolerance for that has become a lot less, and seeing women stick up for themselves or being quote unquote saved by other men is really, really satisfying to us.
Yeah.
And that's how we judge people a lot of the time in these shows.
Well, I would say I've started watching MAFS in 2020, and I've seen a shift in the way that the experts, quote unquote experts, talk to the people on the
How
couch.
dare you? John is an expert.
An expert in winning my heart.
John Aiken, is that his name?
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm going to say it, Daddy.
Yeah. I unfortunately agree.
There's just something about the way he takes those men down.
I just want him to point his fingers at me.
Yeah.
Like he does. Do you know when he leans back and he points
Yeah.
the fingers?
and the eyebrow quirks up.
Yeah.
And the
he looks
hands
at you
fold.
Exactly.
The skepticism, the disappointment in his eyes when men fail, you know?
Scalding, beautiful. I get hot just thinking
But
about
why
it.
is it? And I want to know, why is it that we particularly revere him when he does that compared to one of the female experts?
Yeah, no, I completely
And that's
agree
not
with
a
this.
criticism.
Yeah.
There's reasons
No,
for this.
I have thought about this because
Yeah.
they always give him. He's like, I don't know if this is because he's a bigger celebrity in Australia. Is the other thing, because it's his name whenever you see it advertised, isn't it? 'Cause he was. I mean, we don't know him here, but he was a cricket player.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, they love cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love cricket in
Don't
Australia.
know why.
I like cricket. It's quite good.
You like cricket?
Yeah.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
I've never
Watching
seen you watch
cricket.
cricket.
I used to, yeah. I mean, I've not watched it recently.
You know, sometimes you just drop a bit of Seb Law.
Seb Law!
That it just doesn't make sense.
I used to watch The Ashes.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
These are lies, barefaced
I'm not
lies.
lying. I used to play cricket in school.
Seb is sat here in rhinestone makeup telling him he used to watch The Ashes.
Yeah. Let's not stereotype. I don't belong in a box. Thank you.
Anyway.
I got so derailed there, but I agree. Alessandra had some great takedowns this season as well.
I think they gave the women more screen time this season, but
Yeah.
they do save the ultimate scolding remarks for John, and he's usually the one to tell the men off.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if that's because for the men, hearing it from another man is the only way that it's going to go in.
Yeah.
Because their views on women are so low.
Yeah.
That's what worries me.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't think that's John's fault. I think that's the fault of the men that, you know, have those horrific, toxic beliefs and, you know, treat the women the way that they do. Jack.
Oh God! It says something, doesn't it, when it's obvious that for the first time ever that the experts hate someone as much as they hated Jack.
Yeah.
They really didn't vibe at all with them.
No, for anyone listening, I mean, MAFS is... if you're going to dedicate yourself to MAFS, just beware it will eat your life.
It will.
It will.
But, to catch you up, they hated Jack so much because he was horrendous. He, you know, for reference, like, so you have some idea of what he was like. He told another contestant to, quote, muzzle his woman.
Yeah.
Like, and the experts were begging Jack's partner Tori to leave him.
Yeah, they were. They were like, why are you putting up with this behaviour? You know, this is
Yeah.
abysmal. Does it not bother you that he said this? And, you know, she was very weird about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's usually their job to convince contestants to stay.
Yeah, but they were pretty all set for them leaving, I think.
But the producers didn't step in. If they really thought that Tori was being manipulated, they probably should have and sent them home.
Well,
That's another thing.
But this
isn't
is the thing. It's what we're talking about on who gets to be the good guy and who gets to be the bad guy. You know, and I do think since like 2020, as you said, the women do tend to come off better than the men in the shows now.
Yeah.
I think it like shows a really nice shift, a positive shift in our society that I think these shows are starting to realise that we want to see the women be treated well, or we want to see them have their way.
But is there also a dark side in that it can go too much that way?
Yeah, I think so. Because then, you know, I mean, I've just seen some interviews, I can't even remember all the men's names, but sometimes, you know, they'll be like, okay, this was edited in a certain way, but then something really shady about one of the women will come out. And, you know, they kind of end up speaking up about it and being like, yeah, maybe I did say this wrong, maybe I said that wrong, but there was a lot that you didn't see. And there's a lot to be said for that.
There are a lot of women as well on the show who are manipulative and abusive. I don't want to take away from that at all.
No,
Or, you know, to
it goes
suggest
both ways.
that...
No, but this is what we're saying, like, the show very much like looks at the trends of the world and then tailors storylines according to that, I think.
Yeah.
Because we would prefer to, like, especially when you consider the viewership of reality TV, because I have no statistics for this, but I'm guessing with a show like MAFS it will be majority women and gay people.
Yeah,
Probably.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, or partners of women.
Yeah. Who want
Who
to...
end up dragged into it like my dad
And then
was
they
when
get
I watched it.
invested.
and then they get invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
But talking of, what a nice segue, talking of women watching reality TV, being the main ones to watch. So I think that part of looking down on reality TV is because people see it mainly as gossip and as like a woman's thing. So gossip didn't used to be a gendered term, but it became gendered to keep women from using the informal networks around them to keep tabs on bad behaviour. Like, you know, whether it was a male relative in their lives who might have been abusing them, or, you know, something else going on, or things like that.
I actually didn't know that.
Did you not?
No.
And where's that from, if you don't mind me asking? Like, where did you find that?
I found that from a lot of articles.
Yeah.
But from Maria Verena Peters' article from the Whisper Network to Me Too, if you want to check it out in any more detail.
So let me get this straight. So, just because I want to get this right in my head. So, gossip wasn't always gendered.
No.
But it became gendered to stop women from finding help. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm trying to say.
If they were in danger or whatever, it was, oh, don't listen to her, she's just gossiping.
It was a way to keep women from being able to warn people about bad behaviour.
And it like
Right.
invalidated them.
Yes, exactly.
How sinister.
That's really sinister.
Yeah,
How great. Every day I find out something new that makes me lose my faith in humanity.
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you know, this really boosts my ego, because I've always been pro-gossip.
Oh, same.
Well, the thing is, you know, we always say like, oh, we shouldn't gossip, blah, blah, blah. But
healthy
without
sometimes.
gossip, we wouldn't be able to find people, we wouldn't be able to identify the people who might cause us harm.
Yeah. Me and Seb both have like a real world lived experience of this as well. Because for anyone who doesn't know, which why would you? Me and Seb went to an all-girl school.
We did.
And whenever we tell people this, the one thing they ask us is, oh, was it really gossipy?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Like, really gossipy, yeah, really clicky,
Backstabbing.
backstabbing. But
Yeah.
yeah, they always say that.
And there was an all-boys school down the road from us, and they never get this question.
No.
But I would say they were worse at gossip than we were.
Oh my god, they loved to gossip. I had a couple of boyfriends actually from the boys' school, and I've never heard so much gossip in my life as I did when I was dating those boys. They loved gossip so much.
Well, the thing is, they have this kind of bro code thing, don't they? Where we see it on MAFS all the time, actually, where they tell each other things, and quite troubling things, but they have this code of like, we don't tell our wives this.
Yeah.
And it's also something incredibly gendered, but for some reason that's not gossip.
Yeah, and then when one of the bros breaks the code and does tell his wife, he gets shunned by the men.
Yeah, it's like, oh, bro, you were supposed to not say anything. You're supposed to be loyal. Like, what does that mean?
Watching Jono crawl apologising to Jack for Lauren.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that with women, I think it's expected that they'll tell their husbands what is said to them.
Yeah.
Because it's frivolous.
Yeah.
Because it
Because it doesn't matter. It's just women gossiping.
Yeah.
Exactly. So on the subject of gossip as a form of kind of helping people identify bad behaviour, I've got a quote from that article that I mentioned before, the journal article, about sexual abuse and how gossip can help people kind of inform each other and how it's played a role in the recent Me Too movement. So if you'd like to read that, Seb.
Yeah, sure. So just for a reminder, this is by Maria Verena Peters, and it's from the Whisper Network to Me Too. Quote, "There is a long-standing connection between gender and gossip in Western culture, as the communication amongst women has been stigmatised as gossip. Long before Me Too, women had become victims of sexual abuse and who spoke out against sexual violence were pillarised through gossip and stigmatised as gossips in the public sphere. As a consequence, women have resorted to private forms of communication, so-called whisper networks, to warn each other about abuse and harassment." End quote.
Thank you. Beautifully read. I just wanted to end on that as like a good quote to show some of the ways that, MAFS maybe could help someone, a positive thing that it could leave, that it could help someone identify abusive dynamics in their own relationships.
What, through gossip?
Yeah, through the gossip of reality TV.
Because I'd argue that in the show, they're definitely not whisper networks.
No.
They're very public, shouty networks. And they love to make a spectacle out of it. That's kind of part of the appeal.
No, it's more about... No, I don't know what I was trying to do with that quote. I had something in mind, but it's gone.
Well, I've said it.
You've said it.
I think maybe you could say, going back to what we were talking about before, with the women are predominantly the heroes now, as opposed to villains. I think it, I think back to, like we said, even with Tori, who was arguably like the villainess of the show. I don't think she was villainized that much.
It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, as opposed to some of the men.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost... I don't want to... Is it a cabbage throwing thing again at men?
It could be. I think there's a line, isn't there? There's got to be some sort of balance. Because if you're just villainizing men, then yeah, it's making a public spectacle out of that behaviour.
So my wonderment, shall we say, is whether it's spectacle or a warning. Does that make sense?
It could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be both, and I think it depends on your position in the feminist spectrum, I suppose, and where you stand and what you've seen and what your experiences are with toxic relationships in general, with heteronormativity, because there's a lot that is, I want to say, forgiven in heterosexual relationships that are deemed as normal and just part of what they have to go through, that doesn't necessarily fly with queer relationships. And that's something that we notice quite a lot, and we'd often comment on. We'd be like, oh, straight people, what are they doing?
Yeah, and it fits the sort of world trend of women are increasingly choosing to be single.
Yeah.
You know, the reproduction populace is becoming smaller.
Like the 4B movement in Korea.
Yes, although that's a bit of a misnomer. So a lot of Korean women don't actually know what the 4B movement is.
Oh.
It's more like the Western world has sort of latched onto this.
Right.
It's a real phenomena, but it's a real phenomena in a lot of countries in that women are less and less choosing to have children.
Yeah.
That is a trend we're seeing all round. And I also think there's a trend of men struggling of how to communicate with women. I think this is why a lot of red-pilled videos and manosphere videos have come out, because the ways that men were once allowed to communicate with women and treat women is no longer okay.
Yeah.
And do you think someone who watches MAFS who might believe those things might get pushed further down that road? Or do you think that's the problem with MAFS?
I think there's a potential, because you could get men who come out of the show and say, actually, I was given a bad sort of time. It didn't actually happen like this.
Yeah.
And these men then go on to podcasts, and they go on to podcasts that will agree with them.
Yeah.
And it's more fodder for people who want to believe in those things to slip further down the pipeline of red-pilledness.
The thing is, I do think the show does try to hold the women accountable as well.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just if you going from the perspective of an incel,
they wouldn't see that so much.
Of course they wouldn't see it that way. So it's, I do wonder about that.
Yeah. There's a danger either way. What I'm saying is that I think where the show definitely wants us to vote, vote. We don't vote, but to vote for certain individuals, to get behind certain individuals, and I do think trends in the world affect who they decide is worthy of that support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was good fun. I hope you agree. It was a bit lighter than...
Was it?
I think, it's a really interesting discussion, and there's not really any right answer that we conclude with, It really depends on your stance, and it's all subjective. That's the interesting thing about it. You'll watch this with people who have completely different views to you, and that's part of what makes the experience of watching reality TV so interesting in itself. The Quantum Egg podcast is a project from Quantum Egg Theatre Company, a theatre company based in Manchester. Trans and neurodivergent led, we make radical, queer, groundbreaking theatre in tandem with talented emerging artists in our community. To find out more about our mission, visit the link in the description. Quantum Egg is a volunteer-run company. If you liked what you heard today and believe in our mission, you can donate the price of a cup of coffee by visiting our coffee page. That's ko-fi. Link also in the description. You can also help us out by giving us a 5-star review and telling us what you thought of today's episode. The Quantum Egg podcast is hosted by Charlie Wrigg, featuring Bo Warner and Sebastian Emerson. Edited by Bo Warner, sound designed by Anastasia Zhikova.